Welcome, Santa Clarita. This is your essential weekly connection to the most important news stories affecting our valley. On KQRU 107.9 FM, we go beyond the headlines to bring you the stories shaping our present and future. Get ready to be informed, inspired, and entertained. This is Santa Clarita Weekly. And now, here's your host, Sage Rafferty.
Welcome back for another edition of Santa Clarita Weekly. I'm Sage Rafferty, and you can listen to the show on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM on Thursday afternoons at 5:30 and on Saturday mornings at 9 o'clock. We're also on YouTube and Instagram, and you can find us online at santaclaritastar.com. So in Los Angeles County, there's a huge surge of ICE raids as upended communities, as we talked about last week. And we're going to listen to Governor Newsom talk about the ICE raids while also taking a more combative tone against the Trump administration. And finally, in Major League Baseball, the Dodgers put Mookie Betts back in the lineup. So we begin today right here in Los Angeles County, where the simple act of buying bread has become an act of anxiety. So recently, Mayor Karen Bass visited a bakery in East LA. The owners refused to open the door, fearing her official black SUV was an immigration raid vehicle. She had to press the mayoral seal on her jacket to the glass just to be let inside. This climate of fear is a new reality in Southern California under the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. And according to Los Angeles Times, ICE arrested over 2,000 people in 7 counties last month alone, with the paper reporting that the majority had no prior criminal record. The state of high alert is forcing California's Democratic leaders to adopt new, more confrontational roles. In Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Bass, once known as a consensus builder, has become a combatant for her city. She has increased her media presence and was seen on the ground confronting militarized federal agents in MacArthur Park, demanding they leave her city. And it's not just the mayor. Governor Gavin Newsom has also been on the ground visiting some of these communities. He recently described the economic devastation and personal fear he witnessed during a press conference. So let's listen to part of that press conference with Governor Newsom.
And came into the parking lot demanding she get out of the way, demanding she not film, demanding as if they were running the place, demanding she simply walk away. She knew her rights. She exercised her rights. And I think it's important to highlight that. It's one thing to know your rights. Another important and imperative thing to do is to exercise them. And she did that. She videotaped what occurred, and it's an example of what's occurring all over here in Southern California, what's occurred at a level we've not seen in modern times. I just had an opportunity to visit with business leaders, small business. And when I say mom and pop, I mean mom, dad, kids, grandkids, generational businesses in Bell. I met one business owner. They've been 20 years in business. They said, we miss COVID. They said it was much easier. They have lost 80% of their business. And they said they've lost something more precious, which really put it in perspective. They said they've lost a sense of community. They said they missed their customers, not the business. They missed the tables being filled. That's what a family business is all about. They're barely making ends meet. They're trying some catering work. They have a 15-year employee. He won't even show up to work. He's here with documentation, but he's scared to death. He hasn't shown up in weeks since 4 raids occurred in nearby. He won't even show up because he's scared to death of being pulled over for simple reason because of the way he looks, because he's being racially profiled. I met a mother and her beautiful daughter. Daughter's going to Bible school. She just got off. She was walking into an ice cream store. And her mom came to me. She says, I'm here legally, but I'm carrying my passport if you need any proof. I said, you don't need to impress me. She's here legally. She's carrying her passport. And her daughter is just coming back from Bible school. That's Trump's America. 2025, Downey and Bell, California, LA County, the most diverse, most populous county, and the most diverse and most populous state in the world's most diverse democracy, the United States of America, in 2025. It's a disgrace. The President of the United States decided to advance his rote cruelty by utilizing the brave men and women of the National Guard as pawns in an effort to theatrically show his strength. He federalized the National Guard. He deployed roughly 5,000 military, not overseas. In fact, his entire first term, the President of the United States did not even send the military boots on the ground overseas. His entire first term. First 6 months of his administration, he decides to send them to the United States of America, 5,000 military. 4,000 federalized with the National Guard, close to 1,000 U.S. Marines. He sent them to a United States city. The utilization rate of our National Guard, less than 5%. You spent hundreds of millions of dollars, wasted hundreds of millions of dollars on this. 5%. By the way, the folks that were taken and brought into armories waiting for a mission assignment are summer school teachers, our paramedics, our firefighters, our police officers themselves. Finally, because of the absurdity of this and the complete incapacity of the Pentagon to reconcile the fact they weren't doing a damn thing, they manipulated this 26% number. It's about 5%. They even realized the absurdity of this, and they're talking about a demobilization of roughly 2,000 of the 79th Infantry. That process will take a couple weeks. They'll go through medical reviews and exams. They'll be in the process of filling out their pay stubs, getting reimbursements for travel, trying to get their lives back on track. We still have thousands of National Guard. The 49th MPs, you know them well here in Southern California. Those are the 49th MPs that spend 45 days up to 60 days doing recovery and protecting the people of Los Angeles. They're still waiting for the Pentagon to get their act together to end this theater once and for all. This cruelty. It's about terrorizing communities. It's about appearing tough. I've said it and I'll repeat it. Weakness masquerading as strength. Weakness masquerading as strength. And so we're here mindful of people living here. I said to someone, I said, I got it easy. No. White guy, all the privileges. Talking to members of the community, they feel like democracy is already gone. For me, it still seems to be, on life support, but moving along. They feel like authoritarianism's already come to their community. They're not even walking the streets. We were here, not just in businesses that are empty. The entire shopping mall's empty. It's summertime. There was no one till that young woman came in with the young girl came in with her mom. There was no one in the ice cream store in the middle of the day, in the summer. One of the most beautiful communities, Bell, in California. Tourists. You said, what happened to the tourists? Not just from Mexico, not just from Canada, from Europe. They said the tourists aren't coming. Wrecking the economy, destroying families, destroying generational businesses. I spent the morning with Officer Cano's family, a CHP officer that just lost his life a few weeks ago. Half of the service was in Spanish. They met in Mexico. His wife, Melissa. The pride that his dad had in his son becoming first-generation law enforcement officer. That's America. That's California. And that's what's being torn asunder by Donald Trump and Stephen Miller. This is about families. It's about community. It's about the sense of place. It's about our economy. And it's about time Donald Trump grow up. It's about time Donald Trump understand the hell he is doing. And so I'm here in front of a church on church grounds, mindful that our democracy is not on firm ground, and mindful of our responsibility to be assertive at this moment, and we are, to support our diverse communities, and we will continue to do just that. The budget we just signed included additional dollars for legal representation. We did a special session providing resources for legal representation. Over $75 million we carried forward from last year for additional support. But we must be vigilant and resolved that as we focus on Epstein, we focus on the next day or distraction, that communities like Bell and Downey are being torn apart because of his cruelty and because of his incompetence. And so that's the purpose of this opportunity to share and to engage and, of course, ask any questions here today.
Governor Newsom, your personal and your governor's press office social media accounts have taken a much more aggressive tone over the last couple of weeks. Recently, the press office called Stephen Miller a cup on Twitter. How do you differentiate yourself from Trump if you're using state and personal social media accounts to name call and attack him?
Well, it's a response to Stephen Chung in the White House and his use of that word. I don't think they understand any other kind of language, so I have no apologies for standing tall and firm and pushing back against their cruelty. And if it requires more clear language, requires a recognition that things have radically changed with Trump presidency, then I will assert myself as I feel fit. And I'll do so with clarity and conviction. The difference between Donald Trump and the Trump administration in the state of California and the work that's being done by many elected officials here is we don't just exercise our formal authority, we also exercise our moral authority.
Governor Newsom, last week we saw that the core civic California City, former California prison, has now been renamed the California City Immigration Processing Center. What is the state of California planning as far as health and safety oversight or other constitutional oversight of that facility when, if and when it reopens as an ICE processing?
So California, and we had advanced in the first Trump administration, California updated and advanced a lot of its oversight rules and regulations as it relates to the authority of the state that's vested in us as it relates to the specific issue of health and safety. We also had to recognize that we had to reconcile the federal jurisdiction, and there were certain limits as it relates to our direct involvement and direct engagement. The good news is, having gone through a version of what we're experiencing here today, but not at the scale of the cruelty that we're experiencing, that we had updated a lot of those rules and regulations, including resourcing members of the Department of Justice, specifically the AG's office, to provide that kind of oversight. I specifically had on this topic conversations with immigrant rights leaders about what their expectations were in terms of that support, how we can coordinate, collaborate, and share information, and that is our intent as it relates to that specific facility as well.
I talked to Sabrina from Park today about 6 weeks ago. She says kids are afraid to go out.
Yeah, of course.
They're afraid to go out to shop. She wants all the leaders to have police not be that involved in ICE operations around the city.
Well, they're not. I mean, under the tenants, the police officers are not to aid and abet. As it relates to the issues of these raids, it's not. It's very clear as it relates to the policies, local policies, which distinguish themselves from state policies. That is not the role of local law enforcement. The role of local law enforcement is to create a framework of trust. As it relates to safety of individuals, be it their state, employees, local employees, or federal employees, they have a responsibility as it relates to public safety. So I'm deeply mindful of that. There's a balancing act there. But when it comes to the safety of officers, I wish them no harm. Most of these folks have been conscripted. I mean, the National Guard men and women are heroes. A lot of you were out there taking selfies with them. Biggest issue they had in places like Santa Monica is so many, jugs of water came, so much food came. We were really proud of them. They're the same people. They're just under now a jurisdiction of someone who's unhinged by the name of Donald Trump. And so I want people to recognize that and respect that. So it's about public safety in that respect, broadly defined. That safety includes federal employees as well.
Governor, do you anticipate if there's a problem with, do you anticipate a possibility of a further drawdown of the National Guard and/or shipping Marines back to their base, given the rules that Washington wants as far as the ability of ICE officers to arrest anybody who attacks federal officers? The White House on the 11th said literally anyone who throws rocks whenever it assaults federal officers, they're freeing up ICE to actually detain and arrest those people for assault. If those rules of engagement hold, are you anticipating a further drawdown because there's no need for soldiers or anyone else to provide any kind of a buffer around ICE officers doing those type of operations?
Yeah, again, the utilization rate, the mission tasking of roughly 5,000 military personnel is about 5%. They claim it's 26.6%, and that's because they're in an operational readiness. But they're in Los Alamitos, an hour and a half away. They're sitting there behind the walls looking for things to do. 5%. So as it relates to the drawdown, they're a solution right now in search of a problem. But more importantly, I think this is the issue that I want to highlight. This is a preview of things to come. If you think this is about California, you are fooling yourself. These are operations you're going to see all across the United States of America. They've tested the boundaries of the law. They've tested the boundaries of public perception and what the public will accept. And they're going to export, including potentially members of our own state National Guard, to other states. So when they draw down and demobilize, the question is, for what? To go where? Under whose command, whose control? And to me, that's a more interesting question, is what ultimately becomes of these members of our National Guard. But look, you recall, we had close to 1,600 officers at certain points at the peak of what was going on in a couple square blocks or a couple blocks in Los Angeles. CHP officers and LAPD were protecting the National Guard. To your question, not the other way around. That's how absurd this whole thing has become. You would think there'd be some congressional oversight, but those guys have disappeared. Speaker Johnson, in name only. We can get to that. Question is how long he'll be Speaker. They're, of course, trying to change the game on that. That's a separate conversation.
Will the troops be used for fire protection now that they're going to be released? What's the plan here?
Well, I want to get them back under my control so we can get them back doing the kind of work to control wildfires, to keep our communities safe, to address the issue of counter-narcotics, to address the issue of fentanyl. I want to remind you guys, I put 394 of your National Guard men and women years and years ago on the border. I've hardly been timid. I've deployed the National Guard in multiple locations, multiple times. Going back to George Floyd, one of the largest deployments in U.S. history. With thousands of them, the 49th Infantry, the MPs rather, that were out there on the streets after the fires. They need to get back doing the rattlesnake teams, which are basically teams that work in partnership with other state agencies and conservation corps and CAL FIRE to do the vegetation and forest management, hundreds of them. So they'll be reassigned when they come back under our control. About 190 were already redeployed. The rest will start coming back as they're demobilized. I want to get them back in our counter-narcotics efforts and our drug interdiction efforts and the task forces that have been firmly assigned, and to support Border Patrol as it relates to some of that effort, not just what's coming in north, but what's going down south with all the gun running and cash that are going through, including those tunnels that I had the opportunity to explore and witness firsthand with my National Guard, or your National Guard, just a matter of months ago. So that's part of it. But I also want them back teaching our kids. I want them back walking the beat with their masks off, building trust, sense of community. And I'll tell you, the most damaging thing about what's going on right now is other law enforcement agencies, these good folks, are being impacted because people are losing trust in local law enforcement now. They don't know who is who. This is, if you wrote this script, some Hollywood's going to say that doesn't pass any tests. People running around with masks and sunglasses on, and they can run around. I mean, I was in a farmer's market, true story, 2 weeks ago. And all of a sudden I started feeling, I had my hat and sunglasses on, walked a few blocks so no one can see. But they saw a few cars that we drove up in, a white and black car. And you started to feel, as I'm walking around, no one said a word. I was casually buying week's food for the kids. And you felt something. And all of a sudden, the manager of the farmer's market came up asking our folks who they were, because they heard that ICE was there. It was just the governor. That's how bad it's become.
Well, has the White House indicated to you when they might consider pulling back the May 2011?
Well, they better do it now, today, next few hours. I'm a taxpayer. I don't like to see my money wasted like this. There's no fiscal conservatives left. They proved that in the big, beautiful betrayal. But this is comedy. Donald Trump waxing on about the Fed chair today and cost overruns on a new building. How about the hundreds of millions of dollars he's burned just to try to sear in your mind that he's some tough guy because he didn't get enough hugs from his parents growing up.
Governor, you alluded to this.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Governor.
I'm
Alan
sorry.
David from Region West. Do you credit the Trump administration for assisting in restoring law and order in Los Angeles?
Exact opposite. He incited more anxiety. He's incited more unrest. He's incited more uncertainty. He's exacerbated the conditions. Exactly the opposite. It's not even a close call. I revere the men and women in uniform, police officers from city jurisdictions, county jurisdictions, state jurisdictions. Universally, they say that. Not just the governor of California saying that. No, I don't credit him. I credit him for creating chaos. He's a chaos agent. He is not about calming people's nerves. He's not about public safety. This is the same president of the United States that incited almost a riot, in fact, did incite a riot, and tried to torch this democracy on January 6th. Police officers were hurt. He incited that riot. He promoted violence. He has no problem promoting violence, Donald Trump, as long as it services his aims and his ends. He did not promote peace. Quite the contrary.
Governor, you alluded just now to...
You said to play that game.
Forgive me, because she's going. I know she's never going to ever talk to me again. So forgive me. No. This is. Forgive me.
Sorry. Thank you for your patience. Governor, you alluded earlier to Speaker Johnson maybe not being speaker anymore in this conversation that's been going on about redistricting.
No, that's good.
Yeah. It sounds like you're looking for, if you potentially wanted to reopen this conversation about drawing maps.
Which I don't. Goes to your question.
Well,
These guys, look, you got to. I don't. It's not what I want to do. Let me explain it, because I'm going to validate where you're going. I was one of, at the time, I don't recall, this may be overstated, but I thought I was one of a handful of Democrats in elected office that supported independent redistricting when it first was promoted. I support independent redistricting. I think it should be done at a national level. At the same time, I also am mindful next year is the 250th anniversary of the founding of this great country. And I'm very fearful about what's going on in this country. When Donald Trump calls in to the Texas legislature along the lines of the phone calls he made saying, find me some votes in Georgia, and says, find me 5 more seats in Texas. They're playing by a different set of rules. They can't win by the traditional game, so they want to change the game. We can act holier than thou. We could sit on the sidelines, talk about the way the world should be. Or we can recognize the existential nature that is this moment. And so it took me a moment to reconcile my own feelings. Very proud of the work Governor Schwarzenegger and others did on that. It's a national model. Right now, there may not be a nation to model. And so my response to that, I want to finish because it's the question.
As you just heard, the governor is clearly affected by the fear in these communities, but his on-the-ground response has been just one part of his strategy. So you have two California's most powerful leaders, Bass and Newsom, both abandoning that old political playbook in response to federal pressure. You're listening to KQRU 107.9 FM in Santa Clarita. You can listen to Santa Clarita Weekly on Thursdays at 5:30 p.m. and on Saturday mornings at 9, and on YouTube, Instagram, or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, so let's turn to sports now. And it's a pivotal time for the boys in blue. The Los Angeles Dodgers are right now, as of this recording, are trying to salvage the final game of their series against the Milwaukee Brewers and avoid being swept at home. And the big news is that Mookie Betts is back in the lineup for the first time since last June. He's returning to the leadoff spot. Betts sat out the first loss to the Brewers to get what manager Dave Roberts called a mental breather amid a recent slump. And the team is hoping his return to the top of the order, where he has historically thrived, will provide the spark the Dodgers offense needs. On the mound for LA is veteran lefty Clayton Kershaw. He'll face off against another southpaw, Milwaukee's Jose Quintana, who has quietly had a strong season. The Dodgers are stacking the top of their lineup with Shohei Ohtani batting second and Freddie Freeman in the cleanup spot. And they'll need that firepower as the Brewers are aiming for their second sweep of the Dodgers this season. So that's all we have. So tune in next week for more discussions about the news from Santa Clarita. You can listen to us on the radio at KQRU 107.9 FM at 5:30 on Thursday evenings and 9 on Saturday mornings. You can also watch us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and listen to us on SantaClaritaStar.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. So leave us a comment and be sure to subscribe to Santa Clarita Weekly Online. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Santa Clarita Weekly. You can watch the show on Santa Clarita Star's YouTube channel and Facebook page, as well as listen in on the radio at KQRU 107.9. Visit SantaClaritaStar.com for more content and tune in right here to KQRU 107.9. A new voice for Santa Clarita.